Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. The Virtuality Podcast team had a chance to attend the 2018 Pax East Conference in Boston, Massachusetts, April 5th to the 8th. We feel PAX events are special because unlike enterprise events, for example VR and AR conferences, it's an event for all gamers excited to try new things. So it's encouraging to see so many VR games being showcased. It's further evidence that VR is rapidly being adopted in the gaming community. Craig Herndon had a chance to talk with several of the VR companies attending. We hope you enjoy the conversations, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more VR and AR news. You can find us at virtuality.show and wherever podcasts are found, including Spotify.
All right, here I am with Vincent from Trebuchet. They're working on a VR game called Jousting Time.
Yeah.
So I just got done trying it, and my voice is now tired from screaming. So if you haven't heard of it before, Jousting Time is where, at least the VR version, is where two players are. What's unique here at PAX East is they have saddles that you're actually sitting on, and you have weapons, and you scream to make your horse go faster. And you're then aiming for another player. So Vincent, you want to go into how this concept got started?
Yeah, the concept, the first ever idea of the game happened while we were crunching to launch our first game, Prison Boss VR. And we were all doing super long hours, being super tired, and we put VR headsets unplugged on our heads and just fooling around and screaming, and we were like, oh, it would be fun to do a battling game with screaming as a game mechanic. And then the idea was stuck in our head, and we participated in a game jam in November in Montreal, where we did the first iteration in 48 hours of this game. It was similar to what we are presenting today, with more polished and more work put on into it. But the game then had a huge success at the game jam. We won first prize for best innovation at that game jam, and we finished third place for best game experience also. And it had already this idea of being a super intense experience for the VR players, but already having the spectators or non-VR players in mind, with spectator cameras and interactions that they can do.
Right, yeah. And that's one thing I found really interesting. So especially at a show where you have a lot of people watching, you allow people to go to your site and then they can interact with the game by putting thumbs up or selecting the weapons and things like that.
Exactly. Now for the game right now, as we showcase it, it's a demo, it's a prototype.
Yep.
We're on Kickstarter right now, so we're trying to get it funded to make it work. But this aspect of the game presented here is mostly cosmetic. Like you mentioned, you can send emojis and vote for weapon picks. You don't influence the gameplay aspects for the players at the moment. But the idea that we want to go forward with, as it's explained on the Kickstarter, is really to put the non-VR players in a position where they can bet on matches, collect in-game coin currencies to spend to create this more chaotic medieval fair party where they can throw tomatoes at the player, or feed a bunch of chicken that start running around and just mix things up with a joust, and it's just really a chaotic, trolling, fun game to play.
Yeah, and so some people might say that VR can be an isolating experience. That sounds like you're trying to break that by allowing even spectators to be able to participate in the experience.
Exactly, yeah, and we're really trying to develop on that aspect for different postures of players. Some players play inviting friends over to do VR demos, and we want to make it fun for them to interact. Then we think of it as they would use their cell phone and see the live feed from the game. We're trying to think of it for streamers, our first game, Prison Boss VR,
right.
had a big
with
success.
Twitch integration?
Yeah, we're going to do Twitch integration, but we really want to make it some things that people do right now. Twitch is kind of still early in the game developers' mind to design. And what we don't want to be doing is we really want to be able to give spectators a sense of unicity. If you have 10,000 watch people that watch a game, and they all vote for something, and it's like 60% versus 40. Even if you vote or don't vote, you don't feel like that much like a part of something, you know? So we want to give some gameplay aspects where you would vote on things, but really to allow you to trigger events yourself, or to have yourself like an inventory or things that you can do that make you unique. That's something that we want to integrate to the game to really make sure that every spectator is part of that crowd in the arena, or is like able to make something that is it's his doing, not just like the community as a whole, but like there's a community aspect, but also like an individual aspect as among the community.
I see. And so you're in Kickstarter, so are there certain features that that are stretch goals that you're not sure if you'll be able to do unless you get a certain amount of funding?
Yeah. Right now, like we've put the Kickstarter, like we made we're from Montreal, so our estimates are in Canadian dollars.
Yep.
Like it's $30,000 to get funded. Like I'd say like game development is pretty costly. Like $30,000 doesn't really cover what's gonna be happening. But
Yep.
if we get funded and we have tons of ideas for like stretch goals, the game is very scalable at the moment. Like if we get 500,000 with publishers coming in, like we
Right.
know for sure where we're gonna be heading with the game. And what we really want to do is to go maybe towards, in the end, if the funding allows it, to go towards a posture of like fantasy football, or like, you know, the management games of like when you like watching a sport, you like creating like fantasy teams, like well, we want players to be able to like come together, create like a guild of some sort, and like make them their space, and like sign contracts with jousters that would be actual players. And
Yep.
they would say like, when you're gonna be playing, you're gonna be like in our team for like the month, and you're gonna they like finance their equipment, finance their league money, like all with in-game money. And like we want non-VR players to be like the rich bourgeois that like finances everyone.
Yep.
And the VR players are just like the brute in the arena that just scream and like try to go and beat the opponent.
So one interesting mechanic that you do have is you have to scream if you want to go faster.
Yeah,
So is that something that you're going to keep?
Yeah, that's something we're gonna keep. Really, we plan that it's gonna be a problem in the end. Like people are gonna be, for sure, in tournament settings and everything. We're gonna make it mandatory.
Yep.
I think maybe down the road we might like give an optional thing to like switch it for like an input button or something, or just because right now it's a combined mechanic of like moving your left hand up and down really quick, as if you were like swinging the reins of your horse, and this combined with the screaming is a speed bonus to all this. Maybe we could just make it with the left hand if like it's late at night and like people are sleeping in your house. You don't want to not be able to play the game, you know. So but the screaming part is definitely gonna stay for the game.
Yeah, and I really like the jousting in VR, because there's something fun about looking at your friend across and knowing that you're going to either be trying to hit his stomach or head, and like you have breakable armor.
Yeah.
And how does that system work?
Yeah, right now how it works is that you have basically your torso, your head, and both hands that are like points that you can attack. You have to make 3 damage, hit 3 times the same spot to kill your opponent. Once you kill your opponent, like he comes back to life, you have to kill him twice. It's a best of 3 basically, and then you win. So, but the way it works also is if you hit them 2 times on separate pieces, because you have your helmet. If you get touched on the helmet, now it's your head. If you get touched on your head, now it's like a skeleton. So like you become kind of like an undead-like character.
Right.
And once you got 2 damaged parts, even though you didn't get hit 3 times, you die.
Okay.
And we also have different sets of weapons. Now the game has 6 weapons. They're all entirely different. And the game, the first step of the game is actually you do a rock, paper,
is now open.
Yeah.
Welcome to PAX.
Yeah, welcome to PAX. Well, the first step of the game, you actually do a rock, paper, scissors game against your opponent, and the winner of this determines who picks the weapons first. So now the pool of 6 weapons is in front of you. You pick a weapon, your opponent picks one. So what we think is that in the future, like now the game is in a more like event format with people screaming around the hall and everything. But it's going to be like a single headset. You play at home against people online.
I see.
And we think that the different weapons, the weapon have a rock, paper, scissors feel to them also. Like this is why it's kind of a foreshadowing when you play this, because some weapons are good against another weapon, and we want the
rock, paper, scissors kind of mechanic to it, or
yeah, it kind of, because we will want to balance weapons to like counter OP weapons, but this is where like the spectator integration will come in to be like votes, because we will want people to be able to like ban weapons. So we feel like there will be some sort of meta game around the jousting, like even though it's kind of a chaotic charge, like you never know really what you're going to be able to do with it,
right?
But there's going to be like a differences between weapon that makes it more like a mind game, and depending like which weapon you pick, which one you will take to counter the other one, and this is an interesting part of the game, I think.
I see. So feel free to pass on this question, but so some developers, right? So games are very costly, especially in VR. And when you do a Kickstarter, you're usually trying to get funds, and some teams will get funds just to say, hey, look, there is an audience out there that wants this game, and then you can get publishers to back it after you have like a successful Kickstarter, even though the Kickstarter isn't going to cover the cost of the game.
Yeah.
Would that be true for your project?
It's definitely like an aspect of it. I mean, we're an indie studio. We were funded a year ago, even though we did our first game already. Like, we're definitely in like survival mode out there in the jungle.
Yep.
And like, but the Kickstarter, like, we're still low cost at the same time. And since we have our first game that it's not like a huge success, but like people that play it really enjoy it, so like it gives us a little bit of revenue at the same time. We feel like even just the funded goal will make it worth our time to release the game, because even if the funded goal doesn't pay for all the game, we're surely going to be able to sell more copies once it's actually out. Like, it's harder to sell something that's kind of a dream, like it's going to come out in a few months. And our first game was not an early access title. It was like a 1.0 release.
Prison Boss was the name of it.
Boss.
So you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, I can tell you about it a little bit, but like just to finish my point is like we didn't want to be doing an early access title as our first game because of as a reputation for us to never finish the games or products. And like we wouldn't have done a Kickstarter either for our first game because of like Kickstarter sometimes never get delivered. But us as a studio, we work fast and we deliver on stuff. So if we get funded, we will make it an actual game. And we will make it work. And Prison Boss VR came out August 29th, so like several months ago. And it had a very good reception from players. I think we're close to 90% positive critics on Steam. And like the game is about, it's a room scale game. We thought of VR and we were like, we don't want to use teleportation. We didn't want to use artificial locomotion. So we wanted to make a game that happened within like a 2 meter by 2 meter space. And we thought, when in life do you get to be in 2 meters in 2 meters? And we're like in a prison. So the prison is like coming from the constraint of the medium. But the game is more like a shopkeep kind of game where like you craft stuff and you buy resources and you sell them and you customize your cell to hide your money, because money is like physical. So the more you get rich, the bigger a problem it is, because there's going to be guards patrolling the prison and you have to hide everything when they pass by. So like it's kind of a crazy management game with a cartoony feel. Like
I see. So you do have that management part of it that sounds like is carrying over into the non-VR portion of Trebuchet. Yeah.
We are big fans of like management type of games. Like oddly enough, we played lots of Game Dev Tycoon, and I play Banish and like City Skylines, and we all love this type of game. And we feel like in VR, there's not yet a big widespread type of jars. Like there's not enough jars. Like video games is still like maybe the youngest art form in terms of like theater has been there for ages, and like cinema had to create its montage, the editing part to make it work. Now we feel like we want to create good user experience design for like virtual reality, where like people can basically do what they want. They can like, you can just like make them go in front of a table and press A to open an inventory. Yep. They can like smash the table with their sword. They can do anything. So you have to think about all of these things.
Yeah, it's just having to think of all the possibilities, and that's why it's important for VR developers to have plenty of testing.
Yeah.
And just bring in people from the outside to come in and do these things that you just don't expect people to do.
Yeah, exactly. And every time we do like shows and everything, we got lots of very interesting feedback from people. Like just in our game now, one of the weapons is a bow and arrow that we did, and like every weapon is kind of it's still a prototype. It's like right-handed friendly, and the bow is actually in your right hand, so it makes it like a lefty's bow. And we didn't really realizing by developing it, so we were just using it, and then for lots of people it's like very counterintuitive, and this is the type of stuff that sometimes testing is very important, and it gives you tons of crazy ideas of like what happens if you shoot an arrow on a spectator. Like you have to actually be able to kill that spectator. It's gonna be funny. Like
right, and that's the thing that, you know, if you just focus on just the core mechanics, you're not going to pick up those outliers of what if people are actually trying to just do weird stuff in your game and aren't really focusing on it, because the last thing you want in VR is for someone to try and do something and then nothing happens because of it. Then they expect something to happen. Exactly.
That's always super disappointing. When you try to grab a water bottle and like you can do it, it's like that breaks it. Like
I think I know what you're referring to with the water bottle.
It's just a thing. But but
there is a specific game that has exactly a water bottle problem. So
and that's basically it. And like the game is like we're showcasing it online. We're showing lots of gameplay videos if people are interested to see it. We're not yet able to let people try it, but like if you can back us if you don't actually have VR. Like the smallest pledge is like $4, and it allows you to be in the closed beta for the spectator integrations.
I see.
And you can get the game for $9. We want it to be kind of a cheaper game. Like most VR games from indie studios are at $20. Mm-hmm. Our first game is at that price point because it's a good overall like price of bang for your buck thing. Mm-hmm. But we feel like this kind of game that needs an online community, like we just price it less cheaper because of like we really wanted to have a wider audience and to develop it. Like even if it's a Kickstarter, there's going to be like a closed alpha. People are going to be able to play it as soon as this summer. There's going to be a closed beta, and we expect the early access open beta to be out before the end of the year, around the end of the fall, November, December. Okay. And we plan to do the early access model because even then we want to try mechanics out. Like it's going to be like an online party game, so things are going to change. And like we want people, like we had people playing yesterday that said, oh, at the end I wanted to be able to like point at my opponent and make him like bad moves and be able to try him. To taunt him. And then we're like, that's definitely like there is a winning phase, but we can make it last a little bit longer. Like at the beginning of the game we have a parade phase, and that didn't actually made it to the build that we have today, but we actually had a design with that at the beginning you chose weapon and you chose a parade item, like just a horn or like a duck or like, and you just move around with a duck to be like, hey, I'm that guy, you know?
Right. And for people listening, he was just swinging his arms, so you're just parading around. So if they want to back the Kickstarter, you just go to trebuchet.fun?
And it would be, you would get a direct link, like trebuchet.fun will refer you to like jousting.fun. Jousting.fun is the website for the game.
I see.
And you're going to have the link on the Kickstarter. Otherwise, you can just look for it on Kickstarter. It's Jousting Time in the 2 word. And it's not just in time. I always have trouble pronouncing it. It's I'm French Canadian. It's like jousting time.
Yeah. All right, Vincent. Thank you for coming on. All right, I'm here with Stuido. So it's not studio. It's Stuido. Stuido. So I'm here with John and Jose. So what came up with the name for the studio?
It was like a running joke between the three of us. We were formerly known as EOS Interactive. That was our first name. But once we started solidifying the studio as a real thing, as like a real indie thing, like we had a running joke that we misspelled like a lot of words because we're sort of dyslexic with our words, and Stuido it just stuck. And we thought it was really funny. Our full name is Stuido Studios, and we thought the confusion behind it really speaks for like how we write in our company, or kind of like how silly we are.
I just tell everyone it's Spanish for studio, and they believe me.
And where's the studio based out of?
We're based out of Brooklyn.
Oh, New York?
Yeah, in New York.
Okay, very cool. So are you part of the NY VR group there?
We are not part of the NYBR group right there, but we are part of Playcrafting, which is a huge game community in New York. And it's not just VR; they support a lot of like indie games and a lot of like the game community in New York.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so is this you're demoing the Take here at Pax East? Is this your first VR title that you're working on, or?
It's our first title as a studio altogether. Like, we all have experience working on other games as well as other VR titles, but as a studio, we only formed back in like August. So yeah, it's our first title together.
Yeah.
Awesome. So do you want to go into the core mechanics of the game, because it's cooperative and local?
Yeah.
It's unique.
So our game to take is a very simple concept. It's a competitive game, locally played, 1v1 with one headset. The whole premise of the game is that the first player has to hide an object in the room and booby trap the room in a limited amount of time. Then you switch the headset to your friend, and then they have to find it. And this entire dilemma takes place in this comic book style world where you're role playing as spies. It's very 1950s to 60s inspired. Think of like Adam West's Batman meets the Jetsons, meets like very quirkiness like Spy versus Spy. We've been getting that comparison a lot. A lot of people also bring up like Prep Hunt from Team Fortress, and it is a hide and seek game. The only main mechanic of the game is grabbing and moving stuff around. You teleport to move around the environment. You have an inventory that is limited to 4 slots, but you can get really creative with it. We had a lot of people first time playing VR. We have people that have been playing that own headsets, and there is no upper hand here. Like, everyone does about the same, because hiding and seeking stuff is a very human thing. So I love to see like kids playing against their father or them going at it. It gets really interactive.
There's a lot of like trolling elements too that seem to go into it, because it's like your friends playing against, or
a lot of mind games.
Yeah, a lot of mind games, like friends playing against friends, and like you can fake them out and write on the walls, like leave messages for them, but also like the enjoyment that you get out of watching your friends get tricked and like just messing with them.
Yeah, man,
that's a huge part of it.
The writing on the wall was super funny because it's the first time we show it to a big group of like people. And we had a kid yesterday who took his time to draw a Pepe, like that meme, that frog, on the wall. And the person that came in wasted 30 seconds laughing at the Pepe. And I'm like, damn, comedy is a strategy. Like, you make someone laugh and they'll waste their time instead of looking for the intel, so, yeah. Nice.
And so I noticed you have like a comic book art style. So how did that come about?
So when we first started making it, we didn't really have a style, and we were just putting in random shapes and like just play testing it like that. And all the shapes were primary colors. So as we kind of like that. So we just kind of kept playing with those primary colors, and then one day we were just kind of talking about it, making it more like pop art, and then we talked about like a Roy Lichtenstein kind of style, and then we're just like, you know what, screw it, it's comic books, just straight up comic books, and then we just kept iterating on it, and that's how we got to it.
I think it was partially like getting that through like the initial testing of it, and also because like we have a little mantra to make games within like 6 or like 9 months. This game, we finished production at a 9-month mark.
8 month.
8 month with it. So we also look for ways where we can make the game like really stylized and really cool looking without like adding too much work time. So the fact that it's comic book looking, we got away with doing shaders for a lot of simple geometry. So we can keep the geometry looking simple, kind of low poly, and it also allows us to give accessibility to people with VR.
Yep.
It runs on almost the lowest spec computer that can run VR.
Yeah, so I was wondering if the performance was one of the main reasons you went with that art style.
Yeah, it also attributed to it. Now we're at a place where we can port to almost every headset, and with like the specs are like the minimal viable specs for VR.
Right, and so you're planning on releasing to PlayStation VR Oculus and the Vive?
Yeah, so it's out right now on Steam for the Vive. It will be out for Oculus around, I'm hoping to get it out May 1st. And then Windows Mixed Reality headset as well. It runs on that right now through Steam VR, but it'll be out on the Windows Store like late May. And then in the summer, it will be out on PSVR.
Yep. Awesome. Do you have any other titles in the books, or?
Yes, but nothing official. We're like constantly prototyping and playtesting and just making like small things to I mean, VR's so new, so we're still playing around with a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And as the hardware changes, we're definitely like adapting to it. But right now, our focus is on just building out the take, building out some DLC for it, getting all the platforms, and then we're going to decide, which of our prototypes we're going to take to market next.
And what are some of the challenges you ran into while trying to do VR design and kind of informing the user that their action kind of give them the agency when they interact with the environment?
So I think the main thing is when people come from traditional games, they seem to have trouble with doors, and they don't know just reach out and grab the doorknob like you would in real life. They're
like
always
a
right. They're always hitting a button to try and like perform one of those actions. So I think just little things like this is like our 4th or 5th tutorial that we made, and we just kind of forcefully put things just out of reach so people have to take a step forwards and do it, and just try to make things feel intuitive over time, and like almost have the player teach themselves, where it's like, oh, I can't reach for that, so they keep having to like try and try again, and then finally they like get to their goal and they feel like they taught themselves. So I think like that's the biggest challenge that we had.
Yeah, that is a challenge, but yeah, that's what we wanted to make the game very simple mechanic, grabbing and moving stuff around. We didn't want to overcomplicate the player to make it accessible to everyone.
Right, it sounds like you want people to just be able to jump in and understand exactly how to play.
I mean, the game was made to show, like, no one really has VR headsets, very few people do, and usually you go to that friend's house and you play their titles and that's it, and they watch you play. So this is like, hey, I have a VR headset, come over, we'll play the take together. So it's made for people it's their first time in VR. So everything's 3 buttons and it's designed to be accessible.
Yep. And we really wanted to make something that like we can show to our moms, to my little cousins, to my family, and something that didn't involve guns or hyper-realistic stuff or zombies. Like,
yep, and to make it clear for listeners, you say local co-op VR, they think, oh, do I need 2 headsets to play this?
Absolutely not. It's actually, you can't play with 2 headsets. So it's 1 headset, 1 computer. It's hot seat, right? So one player puts on the headset, sets up the room, hides intel, puts some traps, writes on the walls, whatever. When their time's up, or if they want to leave early, they give the headset to the second player, who then goes into the exact same room and looks for the object.
And so this sounds like it could be like a fun party game to have friends come over, because you have one person drawing, one person going around, and everyone else can just kind of laugh.
Yeah.
The results.
We
were gonna say the same thing.
The exact same thing.
So like here at PAX, which has been such an honor, we have people come back and bring their friends along. Not as much to play, but also to watch. They sit down and watch people play, and they bring their friends to re-challenge them or rematch. And the fact that it's proven true here at PAX, we feel like it's going to be the same situation at home, where everyone just gets around the screen, and it's kind of like you're like expectating this match, like battle of wits going on.
And also, when you set up the room and you set up the traps, you set it up like you're almost like the dungeon master in a way, curating this content for another player. And you are also setting it up for the viewers to make like an interesting spectacle of how the traps are going off and like what the room looks like, and designing almost like the actions that the seeker's going to take.
Right, it almost sounds like there's a little bit of a cat and mouse to it.
Yeah, very much. Yeah,
which is where the Spy vs. Spy analogy came in then.
Once you start playing back to back and rematching your friend, the mind games that go on are pretty heavy. Like we had a tournament on Thursday.
Yep.
And they were doing some meta strategies of just leaving the intel in the most obvious spot in the open, because they were so caught up with trying to find the intricate hiding spots, and they're playing against each other.
It was literally under their nose when they started, and they just never looked down. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty good.
So is there any last comments or things that... actually, I do have one more question. So as an indie studio, have you had any challenges as a VR studio?
Well, we're in Brooklyn, so our studio is very, very tiny.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone in the studio has been hit in the face at least once with a Vive controller. So that's our biggest challenge, is like getting the space to play test.
But that's a good challenge, because that made us develop the game in the minimal viable space.
Yeah.
So we know that anyone with a headset that has a closet for a space can play it, because we developed the game in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're not the first one I've talked to this weekend that's like come out of a game jam or some kind of thing that kind of forces you to come up with the basic concept and then build it out from there. So just congrats.
Thank you.
on bringing it this far.
Yeah.
So it's Stuido.
Yep.
Stuido Studios. Yeah.
And I want to thank both of you for coming on. And the game is The Take, and it's currently out on Steam.
Out on Steam for Vive, and will be out on all other platforms by summer.
Yeah, and I just want to say the base price of the game is $9.99, but we're having a sale throughout PAX in the first week of release, and it's $8.50 right now. So
Excellent. All right, thank you.
yeah, thank you, man.
Thank you so much for listening. We would like to keep sharing more about VR and AR with you, so please consider a few dollars to our Patreon, linked in the show notes. The Virtuality Podcast is produced by Jason Parks and music by Rachel Dazinski. This podcast is in collaboration with Boston VR and Boston AR. Monthly meetups and events can be found on meetup.com. You can also follow us on Twitter @VirtualityCast and learn more at our website, virtuality.show.